The hall was already full before the evening truly began. Soft lights hung from the high ceiling, glowing like warm stars. Long tables were set with clean white cloths, polished glasses, and small flowers placed just right. Everything looked perfect, planned, and expensive. The people who filled the seats wore calm faces and quiet confidence. The kind that came from always belonging in places like this. Moving carefully between the tables was a young woman in a simple uniform. She held a tray steady in her hands, eyes lowered, steps practiced. She had done this many times before. Walk, serve, smile softly, move on. Most people never noticed her. She liked it that way. To the guests, she was only a waitress. Someone who brought drinks, cleared plates, and disappeared before questions were asked. No one wondered where she came from or what she carried inside her. They didn't need to, but inside her chest lived a world that did not match the quiet role she played, long before this hall. Before the uniform and the careful steps, music had been part of her life. Not the kind played softly in the background, but music that filled rooms and hearts. She used to sit at a piano for hours, fingers moving without thought, letting feelings speak when words could not. That life felt far away now. Too far to explain. Too painful to bring up, so she kept it to herself. The piano in the hall stood near the front, large and shining under the lights. It was therefore decoration more than use, brought out for special evenings and special people. Tonight, no one was scheduled to play it. It waited in silence, like it had been forgotten. As she passed by it, she slowed for a second. Not enough for anyone to notice. Just long enough for her to feel something tighten in her chest. Then she kept walking. The event continued as planned. Laughter rose and fell. Glasses clinked. Important conversations filled the air. The kind of conversations that shape deals and decisions. Far from the lives of the people serving the room, one guest stood out more than the rest. He sat near the center, relaxed in his chair, speaking with ease as others leaned in to listen. He had the calm confidence of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. Money followed him. Attention followed him. Power did too. Whether he asked for it or not, people laughed a little louder at his jokes. When the waitress approached his table, she did what she always did. She poured the drink, nodded politely, and turned to leave. That should have been the end of it, but his eyes followed her longer than most. Not in a cruel way at first, more like mild curiosity. He noticed the way she moved, the way she seemed aware of the piano even as she walked away from it. Something about her did not match the role she was playing. When the moment felt right, he spoke. "Do you play?" The question caught her off guard. She stopped and turned back slowly. "I'm sorry," she asked, her voice low. "The piano," he said, nodding toward it. "You looked like you knew it." A few people nearby glanced over, interested now. She felt her face warm. "No," she said quickly, not really. It was not a lie, but it was not the full truth either." He smiled, not unkindly, but with the ease of someone who expected answers. "Everyone plays something," he said. "Go on. Sit down. Play a little." Shook her head at once. "I can't. I'm working." Someone else laughed softly. Another leaned back in their chair, watching. "It'll only take a minute," the man said. His tone was light, almost playful. "We could use some music." She looked around the room. Too many eyes. Too much attention? This was exactly what she avoided. "I'm really not the right person," she said, but the moment had already shifted. What began as curiosity now felt like a test. Not written down. Not spoken out loud. Still very real. "Come on," someone said. Just one song. She wanted to disappear. Saying no felt harder with every passing second. Not because she believed she had to obey, but because the room had decided something without her. The silence that followed her refusal felt heavy. Awkward waiting. Her manager stood at the edge of the room, unsure whether to step in. This was a guest people did not like to upset. The woman took a slow breath. She told herself she would play a few simple notes. Nothing more. Just enough to end the moment and return to her work. So she nodded. I'll try. She said quietly. The chair felt colder than she expected when she sat down. The piano keys looked too bright under the lights. Her hands hovered above them, unsure. The room grew quiet. She could feel the weight of every person watching. Some expected a mistake. Others expected nothing at all. She placed her fingers on the keys for a second. Nothing happened. Then she played the first note. It was soft, almost careful. Like she was testing whether the sound would break if she pressed too hard. She played another and another. Her hands remembered things her mind had tried to forget. The distance between keys, the way sound filled space, the way a single note could carry feeling without explanation. The room began to change. Conversations stopped one by one. Someone set their glass down slowly. Chairs stopped shifting. Even the man who had asked her to play leaned forward slightly, his smile fading into focus. She did not look at anyone now. Her eyes stayed on the keys, though she barely saw them. The music moved through her like a memory waking up. It was not loud. It did not demand attention. It asked for it. Each note carried something quiet and honest. Loss, hope, time passing. Dreams put away but not destroyed. The piano no longer felt like an object in a room. It felt like a voice she had been holding back for years. She forgot about the uniform. Forgot about the room. Forgot about the people who had made her. Nervous only moments before, there was only the song and the silence around it. By the time she reached the middle, the hall was completely still. No laughter. No whispers. Just listening, the man at the center of the room sat back now, no longer in control of the moment he had started. Something about the music had shifted the balance. He wasn't being entertained. He was being shown something. Others felt it too. Some looked surprised. Some looked thoughtful. A few looked away, as if the music had touched something personal they were not ready to face. The woman at the piano did not know any of this. She only knew that for the first time in a long while. She felt like herself. Her hands moved with confidence now. The song grew fuller, deeper, but never loud. It filled the hall without pushing. Like truth spoken gently, she did not play to impress. She played to breathe as the final notes approached. Her chest felt tight. Not from fear, but from feeling too much at once. Memories of who she had been. Of who she thought she had lost. She slowed. Let the sound stretch. Then she played the last note. It hung in the air for a moment, longer than expected, and then it was gone. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence was not uncomfortable this time. It was heavy in a different way. Respectful. Full. She lifted her hands from the keys and sat still, unsure what came next. Her heart beat fast, but not with fear. With something close to relief, she stood slowly and turned back toward the room. Every face was on her now, not as a waitress, as something else. She opened her mouth to apologize, to explain, to step away and return to the role she knew. But no words came. The moment did not belong to her anymore. And that was where part one ended, with a room full of powerful people, sitting in silence. And one woman realizing that something inside her had just been seen. The silence lasted longer than anyone expected. It was not the kind of silence that makes people shift in their seats or cough to fill the space. No one felt the need to move. No one felt the need to speak. It was not awkward or empty. It felt full, almost heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. It was as if the walls were listening, as if the lights above were waiting, as if even the air needed time to understand what had just happened. The woman stood near the piano, her arms resting quietly at her sides. She did not move. She barely breathed. Her fingers still felt warm, almost alive, like they had not fully let go of the keys. A gentle buzzing stayed in her hands, a reminder of the music that had just passed through them. Her heart was beating fast, but her body felt strangely calm. To calm, it felt unreal. Almost like she was floating just outside herself, watching the moment from a distance instead of standing inside. She lowered her eyes. She wasn't sure where to look. Every direction felt too open. Every face felt too close. Her first thought was not pride, it was worry. Maybe she had played too long. Maybe she had crossed a line. Maybe she had forgotten her place. She had spent years learning how to stay within invisible lines, how to move quietly, how not to draw attention. Breaking those habits felt dangerous. Even now, then someone clapped just one pair of hands. Slow, careful, almost unsure. The sound echoed softly through the large hall. It did not break the silence. It joined it. Another person began to clap. Then another. The sound spread gently, like ripples moving across water after a small stone is dropped. It did not explode into noise. It did not rush. It grew into something steady, warm. This was not applause for a show. It was applause for honesty. She flinched slightly as the sound grew. Her shoulders tightened. For a brief second, she wondered if the clapping meant she was finally allowed to leave. If it meant the moment was over, if she could return to being unseen again, she gave a small nod. The same nod she always gave when finishing a task, when placing a plate on a table, when someone thanked her for a refill. A polite habit. A quiet thank you. Then she turned to walk away. She expected to return to the trays and tables, to the work she understood, to the safe role where no one asked questions and no one expected more from her than clean hands and steady steps. Being invisible had always protected her, but she had barely taken a few steps when a voice cut through the sound. Wait. The word was not sharp. It wasn't loud, but it carried. It reached her before she could pretend she didn't hear it. She stopped. Her stomach tightened as she slowly turned around. That familiar feeling returned, the one that told her to be careful, to prepare herself. The voice belonged to the man from the center table, the one people listened to without thinking, the one whose words usually guided the room, the one who had started this moment without knowing where it is, would lead. His tone was different now, slower, less confident. Almost careful, yes? She asked quietly. He stood up. It was a simple movement, but it changed the room. People noticed. They always did when someone like him stood. The sound of chairs shifting stopped. Eyes lifted. I didn't know, he said. The words were plain, almost simple, but they carried weight. She stayed silent. She wasn't sure what he wanted from her. An answer? A reaction? Forgiveness. I thought it would be. Something small, he continued. Just a moment. Something harmless? I didn't expect that. There was no smile on his face now. No pride. No humor. Just honesty. The kind that even surprises the person speaking. The room stayed quiet as he spoke. No one interrupted. No one looked away. It felt like everyone understood that something real was being said. You didn't have to do that, he added. But I'm glad you did. Something shifted inside her chest. For a long time, she had felt unseen. Not ignored exactly. People spoke to her. People thanked her. But she was not truly noticed. She felt like part of the room itself. Useful, steady, replaceable. Now standing under the soft lights, she felt something different. Seen, not as a worker. Not as someone smaller than the room. As a person, she nodded again. The movement felt automatic. Words gathered in her throat, but none of them felt strong enough to come out. Anything she said would feel too small compared to what she felt. Then a voice came from another table. That was beautiful, someone said softly. Another voice followed. Quieter, but sure. You have a gift. The words landed gently, but they did not leave gently. They stayed. They pressed against something fragile inside her. Something she had protected for years by pretending it no longer mattered. She forced a small smile. Thank you, she said, 'cause it was the only thing she could manage. Without breaking then, she did what felt natural. She walked away. Back in the staff area, the sounds of the hall felt distant, like they were coming from another place. The walls were plain. The floor was scuffed. The lights were brighter and colder. Everything looked exactly the same as he always had, but she did not feel the same. Her hands shook as she reached for a glass of water. She drank slowly, feeling the coolness settle her breathing. Then she leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. For years she had told herself that music was finished. That part of her life was closed. Life had chosen a different direction. She had followed it quietly. She believed she had accepted it. She believed she had moved on, standing in that silence. Feeling the room truly listen, cracked something open. Not painfully, not loudly, quietly, not outside, inside. Her manager appeared in the doorway. Their face held uncertainty, mixed with something else. Something thoughtful. That was? Unexpected, they said. I'm sorry if she began. No, the manager interrupted gently. You didn't do anything wrong. They paused, choosing their words with care. Actually, they said, I think you reminded everyone here of something important. She didn't ask what that was. She already knew. The rest of the night passed quietly. No one asked her to play again. No one treated her like a performer or a spectacle. But something had changed. People looked at her differently, not with curiosity, with respect. When the event ended and the guests slowly left, she helped clean the hall like always, folding cloths, stacking chairs, wiping tables. Simple work. Familiar movements. Life did not change loudly. It changed in small ways. As she was getting ready to leave, the man from earlier approached her again. This time, there were no eyes watching. No audience. No pressure. I hope I didn't put you in a bad position, he said. She thought for a moment. It was uncomfortable, she admitted. At first, he nodded, accepting that. But she added, it also reminded me of who I am. The words surprised him. He didn't hide it. He smiled, but it was softer now. Less certain? More human, I'm glad, he said. And for what it's worth, you should never let anyone decide your value for you. Not even someone like me. She met his eyes. I won't, she said. They parted without promises, without offers, without dramatic gestures, and that mattered. Because this was not a story. It's about rescue. It was about remembering. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual. Sunlight filled her small room. The city outside moved like it always did. Cars passed. People hurried. Life continued. She sat on the edge of her bed and listened. For the first time in years, she could hear music in her head again. Not a memory. Not a dream. A direction. She didn't quit her job. Not that day. She still needed stability. She still needed routine, but she made one small change. On her way home from work, she stopped in front of a building she had passed many times without noticing. Old posters filled the window. Faded notes were printed on the glass. Music lessons. She stood there longer than she meant to. Then she went inside. The weeks that followed were not easy. Her fingers felt stiff. Her confidence came and went. Some days she felt foolish for trying again, but she kept going. She practiced at night quietly so no one would hear. She didn't play to impress. She played to remember. The piano no longer felt like something she had lost. It felt like something waiting. Months later, she was invited to play again. Not in a grand hall. Not for powerful people. In a small room. For a small group, she said yes without fear because she no longer needed permission. She had learned that voices don't disappear just because they go unheard. They wait, and sometimes all it takes is one moment of silence for them to rise again. She was still a waitress. She was also a musician, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to choose. The room that once held her silence gave her more than applause. It gave her herself back.